Hey everybody, it is Justin, your guide into the Forgotten Runes wizard cult. If you like wizards, if you like magic, and you've been seeing it all over the timeline, by all means, this is where to begin. And in this video, we're going to go over the trusty Wizzypedia. And again, in any fandom, any deep lore, deep fandom, there's, like Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh!, anime series, TV series, they always have a Wikipedia page, and in this case, it's the Wizzypedia. And this is essentially where you're gonna find a lot of archival information, pertaining to the wizard cult, right? This is the official source documentation for the Forgotten Runes world and its community, right? We call it the Runiverse, from Callista's Citadel to the Canaanite wizards and everything in between. And again, the Book of Lore, again, is the canonical source of narrative stories, and the Wizzypedia is more of a factual, and it describes people, places, and things in the Runiverse and in our world. So welcome to the Forgotten Runes Wizard Cult. So again, this is probably going to be a place, if you guys are looking for like official, more factual places to build your lore in the Book of Lore and, flesh out your characters and, put your place on the map. This is going to be where you're going to want to find that information so then you can actually have a narrative spine for yourself, right? And we'll break it down. So again, you can get started with the Runiverse here. I would definitely start with we'll take a look at the collections here as well as the buyer's guide. And there's also things, like the Book of Lore, and then of course a guide to decentralized lore creation. I think I went over this in a previous video, but we might take a look at it in just a moment. But again, there's also things like cult content, including games, tools, comics, notable cult members, and then additionally there's also locations. So locations are important because these are like canonical places where on the Runiverse map is actually displayed here in all of its glory. It's actually super massive here, and this is kind of where you'll be able to pick a place and kind of flesh it out. Of course, you can create your own art for it, put it into the Book of Lore, and it becomes canon essentially. Yeah, there's a lot, guys. So again, there are some featured locations like the Secret Tower, of course. I love the Secret Tower, the Hedge Wizard Wood, as well as the Brown Wizard Delta. It's reminds me of Full Metal Alchemist, actually. Just the way, yeah. Okay. Anyways, let's just start here. So we'll start with a guide to the collection. We'll take a look at a couple of locations as well as peep the characters and factions, because again, what I really like about the Runiverse is that, there are 7 dominant political factions. There are different colors. There's always politics and different color hats and agendas and stuff going on that you can just integrate into whatever you're building. But why don't we start with the collections, right? Because you might be wondering, okay, what are the collections, right? And the collections can be thought of as broadly 2 groups: characters and relics, right? So the main flagship collection is going to be the wizards, right? And these are the original collection of the Runiverse. There's 10,000 in total, minus a few that have been burned or otherwise lost to the aether, and they're all completely on chain, right? They make up the magic archetype of the Runiverse, right? And they all have bodies, they all have different things, right? And then we'll briefly go over each of these, right? So here's the Forgotten Souls, right? So these are the second collection in the Runiverse. These are basically, if you use a a sacred flame, you can combine those essentially and burn your wizard on chain into a soul. And again, they're considered equivalent to wizards, if not more prestigious due to rarity, right? They have the same rights and priorities as the wizard collection. They just look very, very more soul-y and Halloween-y. But I like them because there are some really epic stuff inside of these. And then of course, the warriors are the 4th collection of the Runiverse, right? There's 16,000 in total. They make up the might archetype of the Runiverse, right? They're unable to do magic. There are some warriors that have access to unknown. We're just reading the description here, but the warriors tend to be a little bit. They tend to be a lot more affordable. So again, if you did want to access the lore building aspect of the Forgotten Runes Wizard Cult, you could do that with the Warriors Guild. You still have the access to the Book of Lore through the Warriors, and I do have a warrior too. It's a cat. So, and then of course there are such things like the ponies and then the beasts as well. So, and then there's also the beast spawn too. And then there's things like relics, which is the Infinity Veil. This is basically where the Sacred Flames are. There's also the Gate to the Seventh Realm, as well as the Nightmare Treat boxes and the Athenaeum collections. But again, those are outside the scope of this video, and I just wanted to cover the main collections here. I did want to go into the wizards, essentially, right? And again, each wizard has a body, and may additionally have more or one or more of these traits, right? They have a head, a prop, familiar, and rune, right? So the one right behind me has got a frog familiar, it's got a staff, it's got a hat, it's got a rune of Jupiter, of course. And then each wizard has their 2D walk cycle, right? And they also have, a bunch of 3D models too, which are pretty epic. I have mine displayed on another page. Probably would link that in the description. But again, we kind of talked about all the stuff with regards to, how they're integrated into the Forgotten Runeverse game. Of course, it's in development. So win Runeverse, guys. But again, there's a lot of stuff. I really like looking through all the wizard heads. Again, if you guys are looking for a wizard to pick up, of course, you'll be able to check out all of the wizard heads here. There are a lot to choose from. Of course, some are going to be more rare than others. There are even like great old ones. Like this is a Cthulhu head. That's wild, in my opinion. I really like the Illuminatus head. That is like a peak aesthetic for me, personally speaking. But of course, I just have a seer head. I don't know where the heck that is. Yeah, I have a seer. My wizard has a seer head, which is pretty epic. But I like looking through all the heads. Of course, there are also wizard bodies. And again, these are also pretty epic. I personally have a black wraith body. I know I'm wearing a white sweater, so a little bit not matched up. But again, if you guys want to take a look at all the traits, it's all listed here, as well as the props that possible wizards on, the marketplaces like Forgotten Market or OpenSea may or may not have. And then there's also familiars too. So there's some wild familiars out here. Again, you can utilize all of these things as well as the wizard runes to integrate into your lore and stuff like that. Of course, you can reference this. This is really important. I like to put all the aesthetics together and make a cohesive character. So again, that's going to be a really useful narrative spine for you, especially if you need something to build off of, right? And then I'm just going to go back to the guide to the collections, right? So long as you have a wizard, so long as you have any of the collections, like a soul, I think, a warrior, then you'll be able to build your lore inside the Book of Lore. So why don't we go back and take a look at a couple of things. I will have my link to how to create your lore inside of the description. I know I have another video on that. But again, we can take a look at the Book of Lore. Not a big deal. And again, this is the on-chain compendium of all stories, art, and creative energy of our cult members, right? The primary utility of Forgotten Runes Wizard Cult NFTs is permission to create entries in the Book of Lore and contribute to the Runeverse and the collaborative legendarium. So again, the Book of Lore constitutes the heart of the project, and it's going to be important to put your lore on chain, especially if you want to have access or have that chance to be, I guess, be put into any of the media creations, because I know I've been seeing a lot of those on the timeline as the comics are rolling out in its first season. So again, that's pretty cool. Again, there's also things like cult content too. Things that have been created by the cult. Includes games. The Runes ecosystem, right? We're still participating in the Runes TCG tournament with Parallel. So that's pretty epic. There are some epic rewards right now. That's currently ongoing. Definitely, play through your games. There's also things like tools too, which helps you create more. It just helps you make leverage your wizards in certain fashions. And then there's also, comics as well, and notable cult members to kind of go over all of those things. But you might be wondering, okay, what about the factions or, locations that we can build our stuff around, right? So I would say you can definitely take a look at the map of the Runeverse. And this is going to be really helpful for you if you're building your lore, or if you're looking for inspiration, especially if you want to, kind of take a look in the biomes or anything like that. Of course, I know this is basically showcased in the Runeverse game, but we do have access to a couple of biomes we'll be able to see. I think we were able to jump into the Blue Wizard Bastion, the one playtest, but again, we'll be able to see that when the Runeverse drops, and place our furniture inside. But again, if you're looking for inspiration, this is going to be a great place. I love seeing the map, especially in the globe form. That was really cool to see the ocean too. But again, I'm really excited, especially since you can kind of see all things, like the Blue Wizard Bastion, the Yellow Wizard Haven, and stuff like, this on the side here on the west side. You got the Court of Chaos Magic, the Purple Wizard Pavilion. There's a lot of places that haven't been necessarily built out yet. Well, I would say not in the context of, say, the Runiverse, right? Of course, I do believe the map and the game have all those things, but like narratively speaking, right? Again, if you wanted to take inspiration from that and, create a story for yourself, then this is like a really great place for that. And of course, there are featured locations too, right? With art and specific, details about them, right? I think there's an update about. There's also a couple other ones. There's the Green Wizard City. There's the Two Crows Bazaar. There's also like the Slime Pits and the Quantum Shadow, and then there's also the Rainbow Hue Master Pass. So that's pretty sick. I like the Blue Wizard Bastion as a good reference point because it has a pretty big, page about in the Runiverse, right? And again, if you wanted to learn about it, it's basically located in the central region known as the Runiverse, right? It lies between the Dream Master Lake and the Fae, and lies south of the Cuckoo Land and Psychic Leap. Right, and basically, it kind of describes what it is, right? It's the site of the greatest libraries of the Runiverse, right? The Blue Wizard Bastion was once a fortified outpost of an ancient army, hence its moniker, right? The Bastion. But those days of battle are long gone, and its transformation into a place of academia and learning has radically transformed its purpose of this fortress, right? So the Bastion now enjoys days of quiet learning, philosophizing, and deep experimentation into all areas of science, right? So if you like a specific aesthetic inside of the Runiverse and you want to build your character towards that aesthetic, then, of course, you should take a look at any of these like factual location pages and, weave your story in there. That's the whole point, right? And again, Blue Hat culture thrives here, the perfect balance of magic and science. Ironically, adjacent to an area of the Runiverse that overflows with pure magic, the Valley of the Gnostics. It is this proximity, such a vortex of magic, that the Blue Wizards are able to push their scientific inquiry further. Right? Envoys from the Purple Wizard Pavilion are frequent guests to the Bastion for their magical inquiries that draw them to the valley. Right? The purple wizards are kind of crazy, per the lore. Right? So again, you can kind of see where the location is. You'll be able to see kind of, what the relationship is to other wizards, especially since geographically that kind of makes sense. But again, of course, it is also inside the Runiverse, so that's going to be pretty epic when that drops as well. So again, that's just basically kind of like, there's like a whole lot of articles and places that, are located inside the Runiverse, and by all means, if you wanted to take charge, you'll be able to build your lore in that fashion and take a look at those locations. So again, feel free to use AI art, generate your stuff inside the Book of Lore and take your character the direction that you want, because that's the beating heart of the story. So again, that's just kind of my overview of the Wizzypedia. Of course, you can utilize it to your benefit. Taking a look at all the characters, getting started right here, basically the guide to the collections, and then there's also the faction overview here. Kind of goes over the color cults. Again, this is inside of the first page of the Book of Lore. Kind of describes them in a lot more detail here. So especially if you like things like red hats, yellow hats, brown hats. Brown hats are more like good-natured and love simple country living. It kind of mirrors the way that Lord of the Rings kind of operates. Brown hats, very rustic, country living, and then green hats are, I guess they're in the jungles, right? Blue hats are obviously scholarly. Purple hats are the quintessential wizard. They're extremely talented in all sorts of magic and stuff like that, right? They got cosmos, deep magic. But basically, there's also the white hats too. So that's a pretty epic one to kind of read through. There's also the strengths and the weaknesses of these. So, again, you can write in character flaws with the way that your character will be written inside of the Book of Lore. So again, that's just kind of my brief TLDR of the Wizzypedia. By all means, use it to your benefit. And again, you can build it out as you see fit in the Book of Lore too, right? That's the ethos, right? So again, hey, I just wanted to bring you a pretty brief, nice video about the Forgotten Runes Wizard cult, because I am brainstorming my lore. I will have all the descriptions or all the links in the description below. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe content, and subscribe if you liked this content or you found it helpful or valuable. But again, we'll see you guys in the Runiverse. Peace.